Hey everyone, it's Sarah from Sassy Reads, and today I am bringing you one of the books that I read in 2018. So this is kind of funny because I accidentally, in the madness of filming, I accidentally threw in a 5-star book with one of my review batches, so sorry about that. But this is great because I kind of want to actually make this video a spoiler kind of discussion of Gerald's Game by Stephen King. So if you don't want to be spoiled by this, I suggest going and watching my brief synopsis and me just fangirling for like 2 minutes at the end of my last review batch. Because yeah, you'll get the gist of my thoughts without anything getting spoiled. But I actually want to talk about this novel in depth. So I want to kick this off with a quote because I randomly opened up to this page when I was flipping through just to look at my annotations and to relive the emotions that I felt, and I found this one quote on page 308 that I really feel like encompasses the theme, the overarching just emotional turmoil within this novel, and also kind of what the pacing as well as the tone of the novel implies, and what King, I feel like, is just trying to convey with this story. Madness would be a relief, but madness would not come. Neither would sleep. Death might beat them both, and dark certainly would. So yeah, it's creepy, it's haunting, but since this is a spoiler, more like a discussion, there will be spoilers here. So if you have not read Gerald's Game, go check out that review batch that I was talking about. So Gerald's Game follows Jessie Burlingame. That's funny. A game in her last name. Funny. Foreshadowing. I never noticed that until now. But yes, Jessie, she's I think in her 40s. Her and her husband Gerald go out to their lake house to have a nice romantic time in the woods. And Gerald has recently had this fetish with handcuffs. And at first it excited Jessie, but recently it's been starting to bring up things that she wants to keep hidden. And here they are in the middle of their fun time, and Jessie's like hooked up to the bed, and she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, stop, Gerald. I don't want this. And he's like, you know you want this. And he proceeds to attempt to rape her. And she fights back. She ends up kicking him, and he has a heart attack and falls off the bed and dies. I think he hits his head on the way down. And that's where the novel really picks up. This novel is graphic. Not only do we get this opening chapter of Jessie being almost raped by her husband, but we see him being eaten by a dog. Also, we see it from two perspectives. So you see the dog eating Gerald because he's starving, and you also see Jessie watching the dog eat Gerald. Then there's this thing walking around outside which doesn't look human, and it just stares at Jessie in the dark and watches her as she's dehydrated, having PTSD flashbacks from her childhood, grappling with what's happened to her in the past, and all kind of other things. So, before we talk about specifically what happened to Jessie in her past, we need to look at Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King, because these books are connected. This one and this one both take place during the same lunar eclipse, and Dolores, as she is about to murder her husband, who has started to groom and get ready to sexually molest their daughter Serena, she sees Jessie being also groomed, horrified, in the dark of the room with her father. Well, it's implied that it's her father in this book, but it's not as blatant. It's just this hulking man, right? So, if you've read Claiborne, you know this story, and they both deal with sexual assault of young women. This one, though, from the perspective of a mother who will stop it, and this one from the actual victim, which is a really great dichotomy because we get to see Dolores, who's fighting for her child, and Jesse's mom has no clue. In fact, Jesse's mom is actually kind of jealous of Jesse's relationship with her father and makes a lot of comments that made me uncomfortable. She'd like joke that Jesse was like his girlfriend, but it wasn't joking, it was more like undercuts and distaste. And my thing was like, look lady, you see this as a mother, and it's a little much. Like daddy's girl, yeah, a lot of people really love their dads. This though was grooming, and it gets graphic. It's gross. It's uncomfortable to read, but it's a really important story because a lot of women and children have to come to terms with this issue from their past. Not only that, but Jessie has like all these voices in her head. One of them is actually a friend from college who I think she brought her to like a youth group at a church, and they were getting like vulnerable with one another. And one of the girls' stories hit Jessie too hard, and she kind of broke down. And we see her having like these internal struggles with this other voice, the voice of her friend, whose name I cannot remember, which is so sad. I read this back in April. Oh, and she also has another voice in her head called Goody, or Good Wife, and it's more of like the voice saying like, you need to keep it together, allow your husband to do this, like you need to like just kind of. And interestingly enough, I think this is kind of like commentary on like I don't want to say dissociative identity disorder, but it does have some kind of reflections of it. I would say Jessie could be schizophrenic, but also I'm not sure, don't have a degree in psychology, not trying to go around and, you know, say if she has a mental illness when she doesn't, but it's obvious that she has created these voices in her head to help block out the trauma of her past, and so like she's dealing with all this in her head, and it's a lot. Like this novel's a pretty good sized one in my opinion. It's much longer than Dolores Claiborne. Like Dolores Claiborne is probably like 280, 300 pages, and this one's over 480-ish. So it tackles more, but it also has much more graphic violence. But let's talk about that creepy man who was walking around. Okay, so this whole time I thought it was like this demon, because like it's like this tall, like lanky creature with like webbed fingers, and it was just like smiling at her, like as she's like sitting on this bed in the dark with the moon shining on her. Talk about a creepy scene, right? And it turns out to be like this Ed Gein type guy with a deformity who like goes around robbing graves, among other very disgusting things. And that was a twist that I wasn't expecting, because I just thought, I really genuinely thought it was her mind. I thought that she had created this monster. Well, no, there was an actual real monster lurking around. He just happened to be a human, which is a really nice commentary on the fact that a lot of times the humans around us are monsters, and more so we recognize that they're monsters more than we recognize that they're humans. Just, it's great. This is one of my favorite Stephen King novels. I would love to know your thoughts on it. I'm kind of like, I got a glare going on. I'm so sorry. This is like one of the shiny Scribner editions. I got it from Book Outlet. I like these, but I don't love them. I'm more of a mass market paperback girl, so this one definitely has a glare. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on Gerald's Game. Were you a fan? Were you not a fan? Were you a fan of its connection to Dolores Claiborne? Did that enhance your enjoyment? I know it enhanced mine. I kind of wish that there was more. I even kind of wish that like Jessie had like hunted her down. That would have been amazing. But yeah, I just want to know what you think. Let me know down below in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye and happy reading!